As a scientist, I can tell you that Sundays are only 24 hours long. But with NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get every game every Sunday all in one place. That's upwards of 30 hours of NFL in one day. How can there be 30 hours in 24 hours, you ask? I have a theory. Magic. New users get NFL Sunday Ticket for 8 payments of $34.50 per month. Sign up at NFLSundayTicket.com. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games and commercial use. Terms and embargoes apply. Availability varies.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, 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 come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means. That's Stefan Krajisnik, and this is your Monday pod. Welcome back to Leave No Doubt. As you know, last year we named this pod because they won a national title, and we decided to name it the Leave No Doubt pod because that was the theme of last season and what they tried to accomplish, and they finally did do that by winning a national title. So every year we're going to come off of football games every week, and we're going to have conversations where we're constantly trying to answer the question of, did Ohio State leave no doubt? Sometimes it's going to be the team as a whole. Sometimes we'll focus on individual parts. This week, we're going to be focusing on Julian Saiyin, the starting quarterback, because this is the first time during his career as Ohio State's starting quarterback where Ryan Day has essentially just let him loose and let him throw the ball down the field, and it was a firework. 18 of 19, 95% completion percentage for 306 yards, 4 touchdowns. His one incompletion, though, was a interception in the end zone. So technically he had 5 passes that were caught in the end zone, and technically he never had a pass hit the ground. Stefan, before we get into what we're actually going to do today, first question, was he better, same, or worse? I mean, he couldn't have been worse. Was he about what you thought he was in real time on your rewatch, or was it even better?
Yeah, I think it was about the same, but I was also super high on it as I was watching it happen. Just watching, looking up in the press box and seeing Fox show the replays and the accuracy that Julian Sayin was displaying. I was pretty high on it as it happened, and I actually kind of went into the rewatch wondering, was I maybe gonna watch this and say, oh wow, this Grambling secondary really just couldn't do anything and the passes were easy for Julian. I was open to the idea of maybe it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was in real time, and watching it back, Grambling State doesn't have an all Big Ten caliber secondary, but I still think that my opinion in real time of these passes are still incredibly accurate was reaffirmed by rewatching the game. So I am count me in the boat of high expectations for Julian Sayin even after watching him play against Grambling.
So you are not like PFF going to give him an 80.2 when he had one incompletion the entire game.
Well, an 80.2, I think in grade school was like a B minus, and I think Stephen Means gave Julian Sayin a B for his performance yesterday. So are you going to give him an 80.2 like PFF?
I'm raising my grade. My grade went up. I think in the moment it's a turnover, and I put myself in the mindset of it doesn't matter that it's a turnover because they were up by 3 or 4 touchdowns by the time it happened, and Grambling isn't a team who can make you pay for that turnover. But I was just thinking about the previous week where Arch didn't play well, but if he doesn't throw an interception, maybe we're talking about a different football game here. So maybe I put too much into that, and then you rewatch it and you're like, yeah, Stefan, we're going to walk through all 19 of Julian Sayin's throws on this podcast. We decided to put that off yesterday and talk about the young guys and let those guys shine, and so that we could do this today. And we're also going to talk a little bit of Bryce Underwood as well. I do have one thing, though, I want to bring up before we start this part of it, because this is going to be all offense. I think we're going to do a lot of defense next week at this time because Parker Navarro will give us a really good look at what how this defense can maybe handle some things. A couple of just side notes before we get started. Jake Butt, I understand he played tight end, but I think Saturday was his favorite day ever covering an Ohio State football game because Nate Roberts was the only tight end I think Brody Lennon was the only tight end who did not have a catch, and 2 tight ends got into the end zone. I have never heard so much tight end talk and offensive line talk when they're just trying to find things to talk about than Jake Butt during this broadcast, and I loved it. We need more Jake Butts in the world as color commentators.
Yeah, he did a terrific job. I enjoyed, obviously when we're in the press box, we're watching the replays, but we're not listening to the broadcast, and that's one of my favorite parts of rewatch these games is hearing what the commentators have to say. And obviously, I think you and I both have a lot of respect for Gus and Joel, but we hear them a lot, right? And having a guy like Jake Butt, who we don't hear as often, give his perspective on Ohio State is definitely interesting. Yeah, he loved what Ohio State was doing with their tight ends. I think if Jake Butt could give an award to a player, it would probably be Will Kazmarek for everything he was doing. Like Jake Butt and the entire broadcast crew was pumped when Will Kazmarek caught the touchdown and immediately had to come out for the extra point to block for the extra point attempt. So, and also biased as a White Sox fan, Brooke Fletcher is a sideline reporter for the White Sox. She did the sideline for the Ohio State Grambling game, and I thought she did a great job. Her sideline hit on Kaden McDonald and Caleb Downs, and that picture of them as kids together, I had never seen that picture before, so that was pretty cool to see as well.
Did you tell her that you were?
I did. We did talk a little White Sox pregame. Yes, we chopped it up talking a little seam.
Okay, that's the only thing I'm gonna. I don't care about the baseball conversation. Will Kazmarek only played 9 snaps in this game, which was shocking to me because I thought he was very loud in all 9 of his snaps. The other thing, because we're not going to touch on it because it's not necessarily a throw. I don't think Julian was more angry with any play than the fumble. And I hate that he gets the negative yards for that because he's not the one who didn't catch the ball. It was CJ Donaldson who didn't catch the ball on a toss in the red zone. He's not happy. And he's looking at the tablet. Every time they showed Julian Sayin on the sideline, he's like locked in on the tablet and you can barely see his face. But you can see if you zoom in, he's looking at the play and he's like, what the, what to the fumble. So it was fun because we haven't really seen Julian Sayin's personality that much. He doesn't like making mistakes, kind of like the way JJ doesn't like making mistakes. But that was a cool little window into, he's like over there ticked off about this, which lets me know he was very, very upset about the interception, which we'll talk about in a minute here.
Yeah, it was actually interesting on Tuesday leading into the Grambling State game, listening to Ryan Day talk about the benefit of the access to the tablets specifically to a guy like Julian Sayin, right? With Will Howard, obviously there's a lot of benefits to having it there, but that's a guy who's seen a lot of football, can pretty quickly dissect like what went wrong on a certain play. Julian Sayin, there's a lot of times where a young quarterback like that is, you got to wait until the next day or later that night to be able to kind of show him what went wrong. I think the play that Ryan Day used as an example was that 4th and 1 incompletion to Max Clare against Texas, where him and Julian were both able to kind of look at the tablet, see what Julian saw. Ryan was actually kind of like, I see what you were thinking there. Like that's good information to have. And I do love, because they mentioned a few times, they mentioned that specifically in the broadcast, what Day had said. And it's just funny because it's just like, as soon as Julian came off the sideline, he got his iPad time. And it's like, all right, it's like elementary school kids. Be like, all right, Julian, you have 3 minutes of screen time, and then Arville Reese is going to end this drive, and you're going back on the field.
It's college football turning kids into iPad babies. That's the story that we want to read.
Mean, listen, we're getting to the point where a lot of these college athletes grew up probably having laptops and iPads in school. So why not lean into it? This is all they know.
I mean, to be fair, it's like Andrew and I both have iPads up in the press box too, so I can't really make fun of them when I do the exact same thing at this point. It is what it is. Okay, 19 dropbacks, 19 throws. He was kept clean on every single dropback because, of course, Grambling did blitz 5 times, and Julian picked it apart 5 for 5. Even one of his touchdowns came on one of the blitzes. 11 play action passes, 5 screen passes, 3 plays, 3 throws of 20 yards or more, 2 throws between 10 and 19 yards, 8 throws that were between 0 and 9 yards. That's where the incompletion and the interception came from. All 4 of his touchdowns came on plays that were 10 to 20 plus yards, right? Everything was 10 yards or more with that, which is what I wanted to see. That was my outrageous prediction. And then 5 throws behind the line of scrimmage. They let him have the full on course of what the passing game is. So we start with pass number 1 to Brandon Ennis. I think it's the first play of the game, first offensive play of the game for Ohio State. 12-yard completion to Brandon Ennis is a first down. Here's what I learned on that play. And we're not going to learn something on every single play because some of these are just simple routine things. But I did learn, because if you're watching the play, I don't think Ennis is the first read. I literally watched him go Carnell, JJ, Brandon Ennis in a span of 0.9 seconds, processes it, quickly makes a throw. Brandon Ennis takes it behind the sticks. It's a first down. So when you're looking for, can he just do things that keep this offense on schedule? It wasn't special. It wasn't scramble out to your left, get your feet set, throw a 30-yard bomber where you also had to evade the defender. But these types of things are almost 10 times more valuable, because this is going to happen 85% of his throws. It's just read. Oh, that's my guy. Make the throw. Don't even think about it. And it's a first down and your offense is still on schedule.
Yeah, my reaction to that play was NFL, right? Like, there's so many guys in college football that, go to super talented universities. Obviously, Ohio State's among them, where a lot of times your first read is open because you have demigods at wide receiver. I think, programs like LSU, USC throughout the years, that's one thing that gets criticized with quarterbacks prospects out of those schools is, they rely on their first read so much. And that is something that NFL scouts are going to see on film and say, wow, second career start, this dude's going to his, third read and he's looking comfortable in the pocket and he's finding the open guy. As the play was going on in real time, I thought if he had actually stayed on the read to JJ just a second longer, he would have had JJ over the middle of the field. But it's like, I like the idea that it's quick. Don't sit there and wait for JJ, because then you're going to lose the opportunity of a wide open Ennis. If Ennis is there and he's open, hit it. Don't wait for another one to maybe not develop. In real time, I was sitting next to you in the press box, and I actually was like, oh, we probably should have went to JJ. And upon watching it, I was like, I think Ennis was the read there, right? And it, like you said, it's not even just that he's going through his read, it's how quickly he was able to do it. Like, his head turned so quick. Like, he's very quick in his decision-making, which is not easy to do when you're a first-time starter.
And I think there's pros and cons to that. There's pros and cons to everything, right? We're both, I'm assuming we have some version of, like, there's a lot of football going on today, but the Steelers and the Jets are on my TV screen right now. But as we're doing this podcast, and Justin Fields just like play actioned into a touchdown where he's literally skipping into the end zone. And the funny thing about Justin, and it even was the thing when he was at Ohio State, was the concept of one read quarterback. Well, if you have superstar receivers, it's probably, you kind of love the one read quarterback, right? Because your wide receiver one is going to eat. It's like the thing right now with, Garrett Wilson might have the best year in the world if you're a fantasy football player, because Justin Fields, if all else fails, he's going to find Garrett Wilson, who's having a great day today. That was the thing during his career here, too. If you remember, they funneled the offense through Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in 2020. Jamison Williams wasn't really a part of things. Outside of the Clemson game and the Sugar Bowl, the tight ends really weren't part of the passing game. It was just two people. Julian's the other end of that spectrum. Because with Justin, as great as it was that your superstars were involved, Ryan Day did a lot of having to cut the field in half with him. With Julian, anybody's liable to get the football. With CJ, anybody was liable to get the football. That's how you ended up with 3 wide receivers with 900 plus yards in 2021. I think the con of it, though, because the pro is, when you have this many weapons, you need a quarterback who doesn't care. It's just whoever's open is getting the ball, and I'm going to make my reads. I do think the con of it, though, is what you just mentioned, though. Sometimes moving off the read too quickly, because you're quickly going through your process. Jeremiah Smith is open on 4th down against Texas, and it probably should have been an explosive touchdown. You didn't make a bad read going to Max Clare. Max Clare dropped the ball. If he just dropped the ball, we're not talking about this the same way, but that's what we're talking about. That's a good opportunity right there, where I think he came off of JJ too quickly. Does it matter? No, because they got a first down anyway, but it's something to keep an eye on later on when we talk about the interception, because I think this is my interpretation of what happened and why it ended up being an interception, and we'll get to that in a minute. We're gonna quickly move on to this one because it's a screen to Carnell Tate, and Carnell Tate does the work. So instead of talking about Julian on this play, what did you think of the wide receiver blocking on Saturday?
I thought it was okay for the most part. On that play specifically, I was actually impressed with Brandon Ennis because they're blocking 2 versus 3. It was him and JJ blocking, I think. 2v3, and Brandon kind of like delivers a block and then turns around and blocks the trailing guy to make sure that he doesn't catch up to Carnell Tate, so they can get maybe an extra yard or 2 or 3. So I was pretty impressed with it. Day after the Texas game was so complimentary of Carnell Tate and his blocking. So to see Brandon Ennis and JJ blocking for him, I think is always a promising sign. And like we've said many times, if you are to nitpick JJ in any facet, like that's probably it. And I thought he looked, at least on that play, pretty good. The one thing I will say about Julian, that was a play where I thought quick release, like wow,
Yeah.
that was quick. And I thought there's another pass shortly that we'll talk about where there's on those screens was when I was kind of like, those are going to be tough to defend because the defender has to react quickly. If the ball's out super fast, like that's going to be tough to do because now it's already in JJ or Carnell or Brandon Innis's hands, and I got to catch up, and that's difficult to do.
And that's why I asked about the blocking, because wide receiver blocking has been a up and downhill thing at Ohio State. In 2022, they ran a bunch of those in RPO situations where they'd get it out to the perimeter, but because somebody missed a block, whether it was Emeka, whether it was Marvin, whether it was Julian, whether it was even Kate Stover at tight end, someone would miss a block, and now it's 2nd and 12. When the whole point of that play was to get you, maybe it's explosive, but at worst, you're 2nd and 6. And now it's 2nd and 12 because somebody missed. All it takes is in that space, somebody to miss one block. And so now you can't even get going. And there was another play like that later on where I also just thought a Grambling player made a good play. But if Brandon Ennis showed me some things in the blocking, I think you're right, JJ was better. But Carnell Tate the last 2 weeks has been a hell of a blocker. So you can do stuff like this. You can stretch the field vertically and horizontally. Okay, so you've gone read, find Brandon Ennis. You stretched it to the right. Now you come back and you stretch it to the left with an RPO. This is the first RPO Julian Saiyan ran in the game, I think. And he makes the right read. Player crashes, he pulls it, he throws it to JJ. JJ gets 4 yards out of it. First down, keeps the drive alive. And I think that's what you're talking about here is you processed, it's an RPO. You're either going to hand it off or you're going to throw it. And it's going to be a bang-bang situation where you got to make the decision quickly. Once again, Julian Saiyan makes a quick decision. Nothing special, nothing. You're not winning the Heisman because of this play, right? No one's going, oh, wow, Julian Saiyan might be a first-round draft pick because of this play. But it's just another opportunity of something they didn't do with him last week, and that's give him options at the line of scrimmage post-snap to do something. And he made the right decision.
Yeah, I didn't really have too many notes on this one. I thought it was just quick, good decision-making.
Which brings us to, I think, our first checkpoint. It's Will Kazmarek, 1st and 10. I don't care who the opponent is. I think the opponent just decided it was a touchdown versus a explosive pass, and maybe they're at like the 6-yard line. Here are my notes. Wow. 1-inch drill type throw. And the 1-inch drill type throw, Stefan, when we were here at camps in the summer, you would see the quarterbacks doing this where they bring out the baseball net and you literally, the whole point of it is to throw it 1 inch over the net because that's what this throw is. It's enough air over it that a defender can't take it, but not too much air over it that a receiver has to slow down. It's perfect. It's literally a dot. And Ryan Day said after the game, if the defender's back to you, the man is open. Okay, Grambling's back is to Julian Saiyan because they're trying to catch up to Will Kazmarek in this situation. And again, I don't care if you're playing the Steelers from the 80s or the Ravens from the early 2000s. This is a completion regardless. This is why we think he's special, this exact throw.
Yeah, and I already compared it on a pod and a video to the Will Howard throw at Wrigley against Northwestern. So for the sake of not repeating myself, because I think I've made it clear how much I enjoyed that throw. I reminded our texters this morning of how much I enjoyed that throw, 614-350-3315. We had some good, you and I went back and forth with the texters there a little bit, just great Julian Sayin convo. And then you made a lot of Riley Pettijohn convo as well, which there's always room for that after the way he played.
If you want great analysis, if you want to see me, if you want to get a text from me where I'm yelling at you in all caps, Riley Pettijohn, get the text 614-350-3315.
Yes, exactly. So for the sake of not everything you said there, 100% agree. One thing that I didn't even really realize real time, I remember pointing out tempo to you, and I didn't really put together in my head that was the play that they scored a touchdown. That was the first time we've seen them really go up tempo with Julian Saiyan. That's something that Ryan Day talked about post game of in this. He keeps saying pushing the envelope. I keep saying put more on his plate. I think the broadcast actually at one point Julian was balling there like, this isn't like putting more on his plate. This is just a full like Thanksgiving dinner right now, the way he's playing. And this was, I think, I can't remember every play from the Texas game, but I think this was the first one where they kind of put a little tempo on it. And I like the way they set it up of just screen pass. All right, let's move. Let's go. Got the play in quick, and Julian made a great read across the middle of the field to get that ball to Will Kazmarek, who he just keeps balling throughout these first 2 games. And he's a guy who we talked a lot about him in the offseason. It still feels like we didn't talk enough about him just because of all the different things that he can do for Ohio State. And I wanted to go check the numbers because it has felt like over the middle of the field or across like the middle of the field is where Julian is just, it seems like he's automatic. Yeah. He's 20 for 22 through 2 games with 209 yards thrown over the middle of the field. Obviously that's like 91%, so that's going to dip at some point. Like Will Howard last year, if I'm not mistaken, do I have this right? He broke the completion percentage record for Ohio State in a single season.
I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Regardless, he had an awesome completion percentage. He was 77% on throws over the middle of the field. Sure, Julian's going to dip a little bit, but like if he dips and he drops down to like 77%, like that's where Will Howard at. And Will Howard was very accurate and very good over the middle of the field as well. So like he's 91% over the middle of the field. Like that's so impressive, man. He's a freshman. He's not afraid to throw the ball over the middle of the field. And of course, some of that has come close to the line of scrimmage, crossing routes or whatever it may be. That Will Kazmarek one was like, it reminded me of a play we saw in the spring game to Max Clare, where it's if he's got a tight end over the middle, he's going to take it. That opens up so much for this offense because of what you have on the perimeter.
I don't think you have to temper that though, because that you're saying that's not normal for freshmen to do that. In fact, most people, wise people, would keep freshmen from having to throw it over the middle of the field as often as possible because there's no safety net, right? If you're throwing on the sideline, okay, you can throw it out of bounds, right? You got help. The out of bounds is a defender, but it's your defender. It's in your if you throw something across the middle and it's too high or it's late or it gets picked off or it gets tipped by somebody, it's an interception. So you would rather not put the ball in harm's way by putting a freshman, a first-year starting quarterback in that situation, and yet here we are. It was the same thing with C.J. Stroud, where they weren't afraid to go across the middle of the field with him. They weren't afraid to throw it over the middle like that and layer throws with a young guy. And, I mean, C.J. was pretty good at it, so Julian Sayin doing it as well. That's the first special throw of the day. I think the first throw of the day was the first, like, hey, here's his processing. This is why he's special. But this is the first, hey, we're going to let you let it rip here. And it was perfect. There's like no notes on that if I'm watching film with him, which is also why I'm not Billy Fessler making over $1 million to do this, because he probably did have some notes. He probably talked about his footwork. That's what Ryan Day likes to talk about, footwork. Throw number 5, 87 yards to Jeremiah Smith. It's the second longest passing play for a touchdown in Ohio State history behind Kenny Guyton to Devin Smith against California. I think that was 2013 is what Jerry said. Coverage, it's a good throw, right? It's on time. It's on target. JJ can run after it, but it's also just, listen, coverage must happen. I get it. I don't know if Jeremiah Smith is the player that you should be having coverage bust against, though.
Well, if you didn't like that one coverage bust, we'll get to another one later that also led to a Jeremiah Smith touchdown.
He's the best player he's the best football player not in the NFL. If there's anybody you don't want to, he's probably going to score on you anyway, but don't help him score on you.
And what's interesting about this play too is, like, again, this play is kind of Julian going through his reads, because the way this play is designed with that safety over the top, like that throw's probably not there. So Julian's like going through his read and he looks to his left. He's like, that's not supposed to be like that, but sure. I'll take 2 consecutive passes for 40+ yard touchdowns. Thank you very much.
He's 87 yards of, what is that? He's got 87-yard completion. He's got a 47-yarder, 4-yarder, 8-yarder, and 12-yarder. So that's 20, 24. What's 24 plus 47?
60.
Thank you.
71.
You are correct. So he still has 71 yards. He's still having a quality day. If you take away, 87 yards in one throw, okay, he probably would have gotten 87 yards in 3 or 4 throws. So it's fine. It's just a coverage mess. Okay, I want to go through 4 more before we take a break. Jelani Thurman, 26 yards, 1st and 10. It's a lot of first down throws. In fact, he didn't have a single throw on 3rd down in this game. All of his throws are on 1st and 2nd down. That's what you call keeping the offense on schedule. It's first down. It's a routine throw. He anticipated it a little bit, but I also think Jelani Thurman ran a really good route there and found a soft spot in the zone. Julian layers it behind some defenders over the middle of the field, but it's what we were talking about earlier with Will Kazmarek. But I also wanted to say kudos to Jelani Thurman, because I thought that was, you see Jelani finding himself a little bit as a route runner in this game.
Yeah, and I thought Julian went to him pretty quick there. The note I had was no hesitation. Like, it was ball snap, boom, Jelani's where you thought he was going to be. Get the ball to him, and I probably maybe even more so than you and Andrew have been kind of out on the Jelani Thurman thing this offseason. He has, in the same way that like CJ Hicks in the role that he's been asked to do against Texas, I think it's kind of like good. Like let's not raise the bar somewhere that it doesn't need to be. Like that is his role, and he's very good at that role, or at least he was against Texas. That is how I feel about what we've seen from Jelani Thurman through 2 games of just like, this is going to be his role. Do not put all Big Ten expectations on him. Do not put all world expectations on him. If your line is for what his role is, like he's going to accomplish it. And I've been impressed with him through 2 weeks.
I also think they've done a good job of maximizing what because he is a physical freak. He had the touchdown in the red zone. Again, I think he could have like 5 touchdowns just off that same play he had against Grambling, because he did, right? He had that same play against Indiana last year where if he has 12 catches this year, well, he might have more than that, because what did he have in this game? Like 4 or 5 catches. If he has 15 catches this year and 5 or 6 of them are touchdowns just because that's where they use him, I don't think that's a bad idea with Jelani Thurman, because it maximizes what his role is. Throw number 7, first down again, 6 yards to JJ. It's routine. Like there's nothing special. It's just a routine throw. But again, you pick up 6 yards. It's 2nd and 4. You'd rather that versus it's 2nd and 8. Throw number 8. There's 2 conversations I want to have here. First and foremost, he's reading it again off of play action. Also, this play kind of gave me a heart attack. Why is Carson Hinsman so far out on that play? And I get that's the way they schemed up the blocking. Carson Hinsman ends up being the guy on his backside there. It's not a tackle and it's not a tight end. And it gave me a little bit of anxiety, but it's play action, deep drop, resets. He reads Tate, Smith to Claire, and then darts in a 7-yard throw to Claire. Well, once again, quick processing, quick release. Steven has anxiety because there's a lot going on, and that's why he's not Julian Sayin playing.
Yeah, I second all that. I didn't have too much written down for that one. So you did a good job explaining that play.
So what's going on with Max Claire?
I mean, part of it is obviously an adjustment to the offense, right? He's being asked to do different things. I thought he did deliver a good block on one of the plays. He was kind of blocking downfield. It wasn't blocking at the line of scrimmage. But I think right now that, like, if this is what Will Kazmarek can be in the passing game, he might be the best all-around guy they have right now. And I don't know if we expected that. But through 2 games, that's kind of what it looks like.
Did we not give enough credence to how Keaton Bailey, both in the spring and in the fall, talked about his depth? They have 4 guys who are going to play legitimate football for them in a way where I think we just expected Max Claire to go in there and it's like, oh, they're going to double JJ and Carnell, so he's going to get all these catches. And then in the midst of that, as you said before, you were like, Jelani's not going to have a role. Jelani's not going to have a role. And then when they need the block, it's like Will Kazmarek and Bennett Christian are going to come in there and block. But most of this is just going to be Max Claire's show. And if they need to use the depth in short yardage situations, they're going to use the depth. Here's the snap breakdowns so far through 2 games, where one game they won by 70 and the other game they won by 7. So they've lived on 2 extremes right now. Will Kazmarek played 57 snaps. 48 of those came against Texas, though. He only played 9 snaps. He played what a starter was supposed to play in this game at tight end, was 9 snaps. Max Claire's at 41. He's 2nd. Jelani Thurman is at 39. He's 3rd. And Bennett Christian is at 34. He's 4th. So, like, they're all 3 of those guys are just kind of jumbled up in the one little pot. And it feels like this tight end room is a little bit more by committee than it is having just one dude. And I can't tell if that's because maybe Max Claire isn't where he needs to be as a blocker versus this is just what Keaton Bailey wants.
Yeah, I'm open to the idea of it being the latter. I'm also open to the idea of Will Kazmarek being the guy who maybe gets more snaps, but we do still see Max Claire kind of get the reception totals, notched up a bit more moving forward, right? Maybe it's lesser snap counts, but when he's in, he's making the most of it, and he's, still the bigger threat in the passing game. So I don't know if I don't want to be completely out on it yet, and I don't think you are either. But I think maybe it's taken longer than we thought, and it's also coming in a position room where they don't have to wait for you to come along because they've got dudes, they've got options.
I'm trying to think. Maybe this is like the Raiders this year, where
you can ask Chip Kelly.
Like the Raiders took a tight end in the first round in back-to-back drafts. Michael Mayer from Notre Dame and Brock Bowers from Georgia. Max Claire is Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer is Will Kazmarek. Where I think Michael Mayer played more snaps than Brock Bowers today. And I know this because I have Brock Bowers on my fantasy team. And up until the end of that game there, I was having a serious heart attack that a dude with that many catches wasn't going to start getting the ball. And he ended with 5 catches for 103 yards, so it's fine. But Brock Bowers is clearly more of a receiver than he is a tight end for them, which is why he can be a mismatch problem. Jake Butt even said it on the broadcast that Max Clare is a bit on the smaller side for Ohio State's tight ends. A lot of those guys are 6'5", 6'6", 250 plus. Max Clare is like 6'3", 6'4", like 238, 242, something like that. And so what if that is their dynamic? To your point, Michael Mayer might play more snaps than Brock Bowers this year because they need him in the blocking game more than they need him in the receiving game, and they're trying to run the ball because they have Chip Kelly and a first-round running back. Versus Brock Bowers might play less snaps than Michael Mayer, but when Brock Bowers is on the field, he's going to get the ball significantly more than Michael Mayer will this year. I think that might be it, and it's just the reason we haven't seen Max Clare more is, one, he dropped the ball against Texas, and also they played 2 football games, and so why would you show the world anything that you have planned for Max Clare against Grambling or even Ohio this week? Because it's not going to change this week because they're going to get Will Kazmarek the ball because he's playing his whole team this week.
Right.
So maybe they're saving stuff. When I said he wasn't going to have 30 catches in 12 games, I didn't think he was going to go through the first 2 games and only have 2 catches.
I agree with that. I also didn't think his snap count would be this low.
Right. But, okay. Speaking of tight ends getting the ball.
You might not have to apologize to Gillis, so there's that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm wrong. He does have a throw on third down that we'll get to in a minute. All but one of his throws were on third down. This is a first down throw, though. RPO, makes the right read, pulls it and throws it to Will Kazmarek, 8 yards. Still routine. Okay, those are the first 9 throws of the game. He's 9 for 9 at this point with 2 touchdowns. We're going to come back from the break, and then he's going to get his 3rd touchdown. And I just want to talk about Carnell as well as this here on Buckeye Talk.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and Stefan Krajisnik. We're going through every single throw from Julian Sayin in the Ohio State 70-0 win over Grambling. 19 throws, 18 completions, 306 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Here's touchdown number 3. It's his first time throwing on third down, his only time throwing on third down in this game. It's 3rd and 9 in the first quarter, and he finds Carnell Tate for a 13-yard touchdown. Here are my notes. Hell of a back shoulder throw. Jesus Christ, Carnell. Carnell has a QB who can actually get him the ball. I think Julian Sayin is the best thing that's ever happened to Carnell Tate.
The comparison on the broadcast of that being Aaron Rodgers to Devontae, not maybe not last year Aaron Rodgers to Devontae, but like Packers Aaron Rodgers to Devontae, like that was I saw that play when I happened in real time. I was like, I'm a Bears fan. I was like, that reminds me of something. And then he said on the broadcast, I was like, oh yeah. Dark memories. Dark memories. That's what, and I don't know if it's because Carnell's wearing number 17 too. Like that definitely helps. But like Devontae's kind of becoming a decent comp maybe for Carnell. And if anything, through 2 weeks, I think the streak of first round receivers from Ohio State is going to continue. Like if the draft was tomorrow, I would tell you Carnell Tate's going to be a first round pick. So that play was also the epitome of something I emphasized yesterday when we were talking about Julian. It's not even accuracy as much as it is like you put the ball where only your guy is going to catch it in certain situations like that. Like that was that. Like he put in a spot where Carnell was going to go up and get it, or it was going to go out of bounds and be an incompletion in a situation where you can afford an incomplete pass. And that's the type of stuff that is tough to teach. And when you have these receivers, if you put it in a spot where they can only catch it, they're probably going to catch it. So when you have guys like Carnell and JJ, and you put it up and you say, okay, that's either incomplete pass or JJ's catch in, nothing else is going to happen other than those 2 options. That's how you become a really good wide receiver or a quarterback at Ohio State. And that play, I thought watching the game, the throw to Kazmarek for the touchdown was my favorite play. I put a star next to this one because I was like, no, that was actually my favorite play of the game. That was my favorite throw that Julian Sayin made.
CJ Stroud, when he was at the combine, he called himself a ball placement specialist. That is what Julian Sayin is. Either you're going to get the ball or nobody's going to get the ball. But also, Cornell Tate catches everything. He had 3 drops last year. He had the drop against Akron, which apparently that's the thing, is like everybody's dropping passes week 1. He had a drop. I don't remember this drop, but he had a drop against Michigan. And he had the one that really stands out from last year is from Texas, right? Where he dropped the one that would have been a touchdown. He had 2 drops as a freshman in 2023. And he doesn't have a drop yet this year. He catches everything. Like everything. He catches everything in a way that it allows you to appreciate what Julian Sayin is doing, because he's got receivers who either you catch the ball or nobody catches the ball. And Carnell's like, well, no, I'm going to catch the ball. Ain't going to be nobody catching the ball. I'm going to be the one to catch the ball. He catches freaking everything, man. I think he might, and that's with all due respect to JJ. I think Carnell might have the best hands on the team right now.
I was just going to say that. And I was going to say one thing that I think Ohio State's receivers are so, like, where they reign supreme and maybe an underrated area is their hands. Like, on plays like that and I think back to the throw from their own end zone that Julian made to Carnell against Texas. Like, those are situations where it's like, there's a lot of dudes who can't catch that because they don't have hands like that.
Yeah.
Carnell is showing us how special he is in that area specifically.
Because I don't think you can throw that if you don't believe your receiver can catch it.
Right.
Because it's a wasted throw, right? Julian made a great throw, but Carnell still, regardless of what happens here, is going to have to be a bit of an athlete to make that throw, which is kind of the point of it. Throw number 11. We have our 4th tight end of the day catching a pass. It's Bennett Christian, 1 yard.
I love this play. I loved
it. I don't think he maximized it. 2nd and 1. It's a short yardage situation where you're play action trying to throw a deep shot, because if nothing happens, it's going to be 3rd and 1 anyway. So whatever. I thought JJ and Carnell were both open. I understand if he didn't want to try to fit a window in there, because this is a situation where obviously you're either watching the all 22 copy if you have a copy of that, or you're watching the broadcast copy, which that stuff is great, but it's not from the perspective of a guy who's on the field at 6'1" trying to actually make the throw. And that point of view is only Julian has that. So maybe it was a little bit more muddier from his view versus eye in the sky view of things. But it's good because he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. But I thought that there was an opportunity for him to make a play there, and he didn't make it.
I mean, I agree with that. And they pointed that out on the broadcast as well. I think Jake Butt had said that Carnell specifically he thought was open on the play. Maybe it was JJ. I can't remember. Maybe it was both. But it was just one of those things where it's like, and that specifically that game where everything's going your way and you're a young player, a lot of guys would try, stat padding and things like that. Like his number 1 goal was, there's a 1st down right there. I'm just going to take it. And yeah. I think that just kind of tells us a little bit about his poise and kind of, I guess, composure, maybe for lack of a better term. Like he's understanding of scenarios, again, in situations where a lot of young dudes aren't. So I like that. Also, one of the few throws we saw him make on the move today, or on Saturday, I should say. And that was good to see too. Like, see him get out of the pocket a little bit, make that throw with some accuracy. So I like that. I think the connection between him and Bennett Christian is still strong from the reps that they got last year. So yeah, I just love the way Ohio State used their tight ends in this game. I love the way Julian Sayin kind of leaned on them when needed. Going
from a 51-yard catch for a touchdown last year to a 1-yard catch this year. Again, dreams, man. We're living in the dreams here.
The space between Julian and Bennett on the 51-yard catch and the 2-yard catch, not that much different.
Nothing changed except somebody made a tackle. That's the only thing.
It was a pretty similar play. I just think in that touchdown last year, Julian was moving to his left. This time he was moving to his right.
But the concept of play action, get out wide, roll out, and make a throw on the run. Yeah, literally the only difference is Bennett Christian got tackled this time, and last time he didn't get tackled. Throw number 12. This throw is why when we get to the interception, I don't think it's a bad decision.
Yep. That's literally what I wrote down.
Because he literally just did it earlier in the drive. It's a opposite hash. JJ settles. He forces JJ to go back outside to make the throw because, again, keeping it out of harm's way and also getting JJ on the run so he's not, like, catching it standing still. Like, this is it, right? This is where Justin Fields and CJ made their money as Ohio State quarterbacks. Opposite hash throws. So, no, you can't tell me Julian can't make this throw because he literally just did it was it 4 throws earlier than the interception.
Rewatching it, it was such like a moment of foreshadowing. It's like when you watch a movie for the second time, you're like, get off on the 10th floor. Don't get off on the 11th floor. Like, you're like screaming at your TV, like, no, don't do that, because you know what happens because you've watched the movie before. It is literally like foreshadowing, being like 3 plays before the pick, that play actually worked pretty well. And Julian made a pretty good throw. And I was like screaming at my TV, telling the broadcast, like, hey, can you tell Brian Hartline that they're going to do that again, but Julian needs to make a quicker decision and a better throw, like in like 2 minutes.
He's like, I got you. Get off of my line. Okay, we're back to Carnell again, and he catches everything. I loved this play design. They did this a couple of times where they bring a guy in motion, they play action it. Yes. Sometimes they'll hand it off, sometimes they'll play action it, and now it's a deep shot. They did this with CJ. If people are watching this, go pull up the CJ Stroud Michigan State 2022 game. They ran this exact same play to Julian Fleming for a touchdown in that game. Bring a guy in motion, play action it. He literally is like doing a full spin around with the play action because they're faking a handoff. That's a jet sweep in a shotgun situation, and then they throw it deep for a post route. This time it's Carnell Tate. I thought the Grambling defender had pretty decent coverage for given the talent disparity there, but the throw is literally insane.
Yeah,
I love it. Again, we don't talk about Carnell enough.
Yeah, that is true. I just love another thing young quarterbacks struggle with is the play action where you turn your back to the play.
Yes.
He turned his back to the play, turned around, and was like, boom, I know where Carnell's going to be. Like that is a level of football IQ that you don't always see from guys that young. And that's another thing where it's like, I don't care who's on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Like Julian Sayin turned his back to the play, then turned his back again, turned toward the play, and within a second the ball was out and he had his guy 40 yards down the field for a reception. Like that is again another trait young quarterbacks struggle with. Also in this like era of college football where guys are just in shotgun all the time, and they get to the NFL, it's like, oh, you don't know how to play under center. You don't know how to do play action from under center because you never turn your back to the play. You've just been doing RPO. So another thing that I think sign of Julian maybe having some NFL talent in him despite his size. By the way, that thinking about that, the like amount of times that guys go to the NFL and they've never turned their back to the play because they've never been under center.
Mm-hmm.
Julian Sayin, you hear his cadence on the broadcast. That's something Ryan Day talked about in the offseason too. Like, Ohio State has no intentions of doing the clap cadence because Indiana literally showed you how poorly that can turn if you have to get away from it. So Julian Sayin, good cadence. That was another thing I noted during the broadcast of like the hot mics are picking it up, which is a good thing for Ohio State.
And Gruden would love that they don't clap.
Yes. Yeah.
They used to.
Saying at like Gruden's camp is gonna be a hit.
Yeah. They used to. I think CJ used to clap in 21 and they stopped doing it. But they do they have the cadence, the wide 80 that you have to, which did you see the ESPN thing that they did before the season?
Yeah, with Reese
talking
Davis
about that. Yeah. I feel like that was a good coaching moment because I heard all 3 quarterbacks doing it. Now, granted, it's not. They said it was 106,000 people. It was not 106,000 people at Ohio Stadium. There were 106,000 tickets sold. Not all those tickets turned into butts and seats because it's Grambling. And it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I get it. But hearing wide 80 is always fun. Throw number 14. Ennis gets back involved. 8 yards. Bubble RPO. Max Clare whiffed on a block. That's the thing that stood out to me the most because, again, this is just another situation where Julian has a read. If a guy crashes, you throw it. If a guy doesn't crash, you give it. And somebody crashed, he gave it. Max Clare whiffed on a block. I don't think Max Clare not whiffing on that block would have meant this would have been like a 40-yard gain. It probably would have just gone another 14, up to 14 yards, but it's still fine, right? It's a basic play where it's first down, RPO situation, and you get 8 yards out of it.
Yeah, I thought it was another screenplay where we see the quick release kind of on display.
All right, JJ, second touchdown. Have the floor.
I'm actually gonna nitpick Julian Sayin. I think he was late. Jeremiah Smith was literally open instantly. Like, I don't know what Grambling. I don't know what the play. I have to imagine it was a busted coverage because I can't imagine that the play call was leave Jeremiah Smith wide open.
Again.
How many yards was this play? I don't have it written down. How many yards?
9-yard touchdown.
Yeah, 9 yards from the end zone. I don't advise Jeremiah Smith being wide open. If Julian had got just thrown it as soon as the ball was in his hands, JJ was there. He waited an extra second, and JJ was still wide open. So it worked out pretty well. But it was maybe he was just kind of letting JJ run the route because he didn't want to jump on it, and then JJ's like, "Why did you throw that? Like that's not." I don't know. It's just like I don't think they could have anticipated what the coverage was. Like it was almost like Julian got the ball and he was like, "Wait, you're just gonna leave JJ wide open?"
Yeah. I think it's just like the last JJ touchdown where I don't think JJ's his first read. That's the thing about busted coverages is if it's a busted coverage, but it's in a place where the quarterback's eyes aren't going first or second, then sometimes you can make up for it unless the quarterback caught onto it pre-snap. That I have that in my notes. It's a busted coverage again, but I go, I'm also not sure he gets that in there against the Big Ten team. You have to read that fast and get it out there quick because the coverage is only that broken because of the opponent level. It's busted, but I don't think it's busted to the point that if that happened in practice at Ohio State, Caleb Downs or Jalen McClain's picking that off and cleaning up a mistake. But that's the difference between SWAC, lower level FCS football play, and FBS. This is one of the 3 best college football programs in the country where he didn't lollygag it. It's just you didn't see it quick enough, and now you got to rifle it in there, and he got it in there, so it's fine. But it's we had plays earlier like the Will Kazmarek touchdown where it's like I don't care who the competition is, that's going to be a completion because that's all about Julian. This is the opposite of that, where this is only a touchdown because of who they are playing. I don't think it's a touchdown the previous week.
Yeah.
4 more throws.
Can you acknowledge Emeka Buka real quick?
He's on my fantasy team, and he's having a wonderful day. I'm enjoying it.
It is hilarious. We're talking about like Carnell and Ennis and JJ, and I'm talking about Carnell being a first-round pick, and then I look up, and it's like, Emeka Buka has his 2nd touchdown of the game. Oh, by the way, this is his first game in the NFL.
Yeah, and Kyler Murray remembered who Marvin Harrison Jr. was.
Yeah. And
it's a good day to be
it's been a good day for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
It's been a good weekend. There's a lot of Ohio State receivers getting into the end zone, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Carnell Tate. This is the reason why I love this play is Grambling didn't make a lot of plays, obviously. They had their moments. This is one of the few plays defensively where Grambling won in the passing game. You bring Carnell Tate in motion, and it's essentially Brandon Ennis takes out one guy, and you get Carnell one-on-one with a DB who's coming from depth. And they make the throw. It's a good decision. It's a bang-bang play, and the Grambling DB just wins and gets the tackle on Carnell Tate and keeps him out of the end zone in a situation where more times often than not, you take Carnell one-on-one against a DB in any situation. So nothing bad or good on Ohio State's portion. It's just Ryan Day talked about it. Mickey Joseph, the Grambling coach, talked about it, that they felt like Grambling, they'd earned Ohio State's respect because they fought and didn't just lie down and take it. Like they could have played a style of football today where every time they had the ball, they tried to take 10 minutes off the clock. And they ran their offense. And on defense, they didn't blitz a lot. They blitzed 5 times. But when they had opportunities to make plays, they put themselves in a position to try to make those plays. And this is one of those situations where Grambling can walk away from this and they're watching the film and go, we won this rep. Let's build on this.
Yeah, I agree. I like the play call. I like that play of just kind of getting Carnell Tate with some momentum, put the ball in his hands, and you're near the goal line, see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Grambling guy just made a play, and sometimes that's going to happen. I will say, okay, I think Julian also put that ball like in the good spot to lead Carnell too. It's not like Carnell had to slow down to catch it.
Right. What'd you think of the interception? What's your takeaway about the interception?
I thought it was late, and I thought it was just a bad throw. That's got to be. They said on the broadcast too. That's got to be up high and toward the sideline, and he threw it low. The ball. If Carnell had caught it, he would have caught it at his waistline. And that's a play that Carnell's got to catch it with his hands way above his head.
I think Julian made a decision in a pre-snap. And when you make a decision in your pre-snap in a 2-man route situation, if the decision you made pre-snap is not there, you need to throw it out of the back of the end zone and play another down. It's 2nd and 5 coming off of the 1st and 6 Carnell Tate swing pass. It's a 2-man route. JJ's on the outside. Carnell's on the inside, on the field side, on the far side of the field. And it's a 2 tight end set. Grambling has 2 DBs out wide with Carnell and JJ, and they're 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. It's off coverage. And they have 3 linebackers and a bunch of D linemen. I think, this is my perspective of it. I tried to ask Julian about it after the game. He just kind of said he made a bad decision there, and he's got to get on the film and fix it and make mistakes so you can't have interceptions. If he would have broken it down, I think, this is my point of view, I think he thought those 3 linebackers are going to blitz. 3 blitzing linebackers, and it's a 2-man route where it's essentially JJ's running a slant inside and JJ's running an outright outside. So maybe the 2 DBs collide and now you got 2 guys open. But I think he thinks at least 2 of those linebackers are going to blitz, and so JJ's going to be open on the slant and he's going to quickly hit that. Okay, they didn't blitz. They dropped out into coverage. So JJ's not going to be open, even if the cornerback that's covering him is playing 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, and he's going to beat him up. He's going to beat him in the initial thing and win. Maybe, given the level of the opponent, you could have floated it over the top to the back of the end zone because JJ ran that route pretty tight. So maybe you float it. JJ makes a bit of a play. I think you take JJ over these linebackers in those situations. You take JJ over any linebacker, but especially in this game, you take them. But you didn't do that either. And so, as you're saying, he's late getting to Carnell. Well, the reason he's late is because he's not thinking about Carnell, I think. I think he's thinking totally about JJ. And then once that's not there, he tries to pivot quickly, which, again, earlier we were talking about how you thought he moved off of JJ too quickly on that first throw, which is why I said maybe if he let it develop a little bit more, he could float it in the back of the end zone to JJ. But he moves off of it. He moves off of JJ quickly, but you're already going to be late to Carnell. Off coverage, out route. If you don't throw it immediately, you give a DB an opportunity to undercut it, and that's what happened. So essentially, the moment he didn't make his first read, he should have thrown it out the back of the end zone.
It almost looked like Julian was uncomfortable with how much time he had in the pocket because he did think that some pressure was going to be there, and he just had it actually kind of felt like one of those arch plays where for Texas, where he kind of just stopped and was flat-footed for a second. I don't know. I think there's human nature part of it too, of just like the play's not developing, and maybe the right read is just throw it away. You haven't thrown an incomplete pass yet, and you really don't want to throw an incomplete pass, and you force something. I mean, there's human nature,
and also, I mean, listen, we're not the ones standing in the pocket with a bunch of 6'3", 250-pound men. You said it. I think maybe he felt some pressure. And he's going to look at the film and see, no, Philip Daniels had the defensive end handled. Philip Daniels was fine. You were good, Julian. You had a clean pocket. You could have just ripped it. But it's a learning situation. It's fine. But it's the first mistake that he's made in his career. And so we had to break it down on why we think he made that mistake. Because what you don't want is that same mistake might be, especially in that situation when you have a DB undercutting it, that might be a pick six the other way. And that's what you don't want in those situations. Last two throws. You get Carnell Tate, 7 yards, routine play on 1st and 10. And then you hit Brandon Ennis on what's his last throw of the game on a 9-yard screen pass to close out the day. Nothing too crazy to talk about there. We give Julian a grade every week. I asked our texters as well as part of the survey, most of which we talked about on the postgame pod, but I saved this question for the day. Grade Julian after 2 games.
I'd probably say A-.
27% said B, 71% said A. C was the only other thing that got a vote. I think he accomplished what the goal was for the first 2 weeks, but he wasn't perfect. And now there's an element of like, what more do you need to? What's missing from the Julian Saiyan part of this before we take a break and start talking about Bryce?
Opening the playbook against a quality opponent, and I'm like 99% sure he can handle that.
Yeah,
you want to see it.
I think, and I'm going to talk about this more because we're going to have a rants pod on Tuesday with the Texers where I asked our Texers, like, what's the thing you're still waiting on with Julian? I'm sure he's convinced you he's the guy, but what are you waiting to see? And he's got all the tools, and I think you're waiting to see like the toughness aspect because that's the one thing. He's been kept pretty clean. He's been kept clean on all but 5 of his throws so far. So there's going to be some games that come up here where he's had those little scat scrambles where he's gotten like 2 yards and then gotten out of bounds, and it kind of is what it is. There's going to come a game where he's going to have to stand in there and make a throw and know someone's about to knock his head off. There's going to come a game where he's going to have to take the ball himself and go get the 1 yard because he needs to do it. Right? Those things that kind of separate you because you're very good right now. If this team wants to win a national title, they're going to need Julian Saiyan to do those things, like the toughness aspect of this. And he wasn't asked to be tough against Texas, and there was no way he was going to be tough against Grambling. And when he goes to Washington on September 28th, I think there's a chance that we learn more about Julian Saiyan in that game than we have learned about the first 3 games combined, simply because you're going to give him the same plate you gave him for Grambling and Ohio, but expect the same results you got from Texas.
Yeah. And I think if that goes as we expect it could, I think that's when the national hype. I wrote about it on cleveland.com. Like there's going to be highs if he looks the part and they win at Washington and he plays well. Like it's not, you can't win at Washington and have the same stat line you had against Texas. Like it's got to be a win at Washington and he's got 2 touchdowns, 250 plus yards.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking Heisman. He's in the conversation
because now you're driving the keys. You're driving the car, not just sitting in the passenger seat anymore. They're not asking you to make sure it doesn't go off the lane. No, they're about to start going, hey, NASCAR race time. You're going 130, go win the race. That's Julian Sayin. We broke down every throw. Some of them were just like, I mean, it was a good throw. And some of them were like, whoa. And some of them were Cardinal Tate. There's another quarterback who I think over the last 2 weeks, we've gotten a chance to get a bigger picture on what he is as a quarterback. And that's the guy who's going to be waiting for Julian Sayin at the end of the regular season. And Bryce Underwood, who played against Oklahoma. They lost 24-13. We're going to take our final break here, and then we're going to bring this into the equation here on Buckeye Talk.
Hey, it's Paris. You know, I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and Auto Camp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you. Ooh. Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and Stefan Krajisnik. Let's answer our question first. Stefan, did Julian Sayin leave no doubt against Grambling?
Yes, correct. He left no doubt. Not a doubt in my mind about Julian Sayin.
Did Bryce Young, win or lose, leave no doubt against Oklahoma?
Was it against Miami?
No, not Bryce Young. Bryce Underwood. Sorry.
No, Bryce Underwood left quite a bit of doubt.
Okay, like scale of 1 to 10. What was your thoughts about Bryce Underwood pre-Oklahoma game versus after the Oklahoma game?
Probably like a 6. I don't know if I blame Bryce for how poorly Bryce played, if that makes sense.
It does. 9 of 24 for 142. Well, Justice Haynes was 19 for 125 and a touchdown. Why did they lose? Okay, you don't blame him for how poorly he played, but if he has 5 more completions, do they win the football game?
I mean, I think the biggest thing was he couldn't complete a pass downfield. And right. Oklahoma just started getting closer and closer and closer to the line of scrimmage with their defense because they were basically saying, hey, Bryce, why don't you make one of these throws? So I do blame Bryce for that. From watching 2 games of it, and Herbstreit did a good job of talking about this, you know, on the broadcast early in the game of saying like, hey, I know this kid is uber athletic and has the size, but like he's a pocket passer. Like he's a pocket passer. Don't just assume that he's going to run around the field. Like he's a pocket passer. And I'm watching that game and I'm like, why don't you get him out of the pocket and help him out? Like he's playing. Listen, whatever you think about Brent Venables, I think you and I are both not particularly high on him as a head coach. Great defensive mind. The moment Oklahoma fires him, because it's going to happen soon. The moment Oklahoma fires him, there are going to be a million head coaches begging him to come be their defense coordinator. And he was disguising looks and coverages and making life really difficult for a young quarterback in the same ways that Matt Patricia did against Arch Manning. And Michigan's coaching staff just did nothing to help their young quarterback. They just kept saying, all right, here's the play, throw it downfield, make this completion. It's like, get him out of the pocket, help him out, do some things with him. And they just didn't. And if they want him to be this strict pocket passer the rest of the season, this is not where I pin it back on him of like, okay, he better be a lot better and he better hit some of those passes down the field.
Michigan has a 5-star quarterback. Last time they had a 5-star quarterback, there was the discussion around him was if you make JJ have to make the throws, then Michigan's not going to win the football game. And then JJ made the throws. Using Arch as an example as well. When we were watching Arch, if they play Texas a game, do you think that Arch throws it as badly as he did the first time?
If he's healthy, no.
So you essentially, if he's healthy, because it does seem like there's a shoulder thing going on there, and that would explain some of the crazy. Matt Patricia fooled the heck out of him and Steve Sarkisian. We're not taking away from that, but there were some throws where it was like that's a dud in the ground.
I think his first throw was that.
If Texas beats Ohio State in the playoff game, is Arch Manning one of the 3 reasons why they did it?
Probably, yeah.
If Michigan beats Ohio State on November 29th, is Bryce Underwood one of the top 3 reasons why they did it based off what we saw against Oklahoma? Understanding that he's going to get better, but
if Michigan beats Ohio State, then yeah, he's probably one of the 3 reasons. If he doesn't play well, I don't know if they can beat Ohio State.
I don't know if I believe that. anymore. I think if Michigan can't run the ball, they can't beat Ohio State, regardless of what because part of the reason you mentioned Oklahoma just kept inching and inching closer to the line of scrimmage. I understand Justice Haynes started the second half with a 75-yard run. His other 18 carries went for 50 yards.
Right.
So
But I think part of why Michigan couldn't run the ball was because Bryce Underwood couldn't make the passes. You got to establish a passing. Like we always say, establish a run. What about establishing the pass?
But he's got to be able to do it. I don't know if he's going to be the passer this year. And you're right.
But if he's not, then okay, I guess this turns into an Ohio State defensive line conversation. If Bryce Underwood isn't making the passes and Ohio State can start selling out on the run a bit, do you think they could do enough to slow down the rushing attack?
That's where my concern is. And that's what I think this week is going to be very important in learning about Ohio State's defense. It has me on edge a little bit, their ability to stop the run up.
You haven't hit the panic button yet, but the panic button exists at all times.
I've got the button on the desk. I haven't opened the little case it's in yet, but it's there. And
when you open it, it could be like the easy button from Staples, where you open it, it's just, oh, that was easy. But you could open it could be the panic button.
And every single Saturday right now, I am going into the game with the little briefcase at my table, and my hand is like hovering to see what type of button is underneath there. Because Grambling broke a couple. They didn't stop the run against Texas. It's just Arch didn't make the throws. We think Arch might make the throws next time. I didn't see Bryce Underwood make one throw on Saturday that made me believe that it's going to take a significant enough step in year one that it's going to be something that can burn Ohio State. And that's not to say that Ohio State's going to win that game. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just talking from a football perspective. I saw things at the end of that Texas game that regardless of how badly Arch had played throughout the game, I went, oh, it's there. There's enough there that 6 months from now, if they play this team again, if he is more consistent at that, maybe Ohio State loses to Texas the second time around, especially since they will have seen Matt Patricia's defense and they have some film to go off of it with. Michigan's going to have 11 games of Ohio State film to go off of. And that's fine. You can have the answers to it, but do I think you can do it? I'm not sure I saw that from Bryce Underwood, and I was waiting to see it. I was, win or lose, I was waiting to see something that made me go, okay, this isn't great right now, but you don't play this team for 2.5 more months. So I think you should focus on the moments when it was good more than the moments that it was bad, because this is only going to get better because he's 18 years old and he's played 2 college football games. What he does the next 2 years, I 100% believe that Bryce Underwood will be making these throws when he comes to Columbus in 2026. And I'm for darn sure he'll be making these throws in 2027 when Ohio State's got to go back up there. But in 2025, I just didn't see the flash. And if he's not a runner, which I have a hard time believing a dude with that athletic profile can't run, then I have a hard time believing they can make the throws. So how does Ohio State lose to Michigan again? Because Justice Haynes doesn't have just one 75-yard run. And he doesn't run for 2.7 yards per carry in his other 18 runs. Ohio State can't stop the run and put Michigan in a situation where they are forcing Bryce to show that he can do something that, at least against Oklahoma, he never did.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game for sure, because I think there's part of me that wonders, even if I do have some questions about Ohio State's, defensive tackle or just kind of the defensive line situation in terms of slowing down a run.
Yes.
If Bryce Underwood can't make those throws, man, then Caleb Downs is creeping up and Arvell's creeping up and Sonny's creeping up, and I think they could still, limit Haynes. I still think that I don't see a world in which Michigan can run all over Ohio State if Bryce Underwood isn't also making a few of those throws. And I'd like to believe that game 12 at home, maybe he is a little bit more composed, makes a few more of those throws. I mean, by the way, the ESPN had a sideline hit at one point in the third quarter talking about how young and composed he was. And I was like, is this the game where that's the hit? I was like, he doesn't look very composed at all. And I get it. A true freshman starting for the second time in his second game ever, and he's at Oklahoma against Brent Venables. I'm okay with Bryce Underwood struggling, but it's I don't know if that was a sideline hit there. I don't know. This game is going to be so interesting. I just a young coach has to go through it as well, and Ryan Day went through it, right? Of learning situational football. There's just so many times where I watch Michigan, and I'm like, what is Sherrone doing? When they lost at Indiana last year, some of the decisions to kick field goals, some of the decisions to call timeouts, you're just trying. There was, he used an early timeout in the second half against Oklahoma and then it's like a 3rd and 6 play, and they run it. They set up the 4th and 2, and you're like, all right, and they're down a touch. I think they were down a touchdown at that point. Maybe they were down 8. It's like, all right, you ran it on 3rd and 6. You good, like great play call. You set up a 4th and 2, a 4th and manageable. You can get yourself a first down. You got a guy like Bryce Underwood in the backfield, along with Haynes in the backfield, and they sent out the kicker. And I was like, well, then why did you run it on 3rd and 6? Because your All-American kicker needed to be 4 yards closer. Like there's just some decisions he makes where I just don't get it. And in his defense, when they beat Ohio State last year, there were not a lot of head-scratching coaches. I thought he coached that game for what he had on the field to beat Ohio State. He coached perfectly. So like he's had highs, right? He's had good moments as a head coach, and that win at Ohio State last year is maybe at the top of the chart. But then there's also some of those games where you're just like, who's telling you to call timeouts here? Who's telling you whether not to go for it on 4th down here? It was kind of head scratching watching that second half, because it felt like Oklahoma was saying to Michigan, if Bryce can play a big play or two, we will let you into this game. We might even let you win this game. And Michigan kind of just kept getting in its own way, and its coach kept getting in its way. And I have the article pulled up here. Austin Meek for The Athletic wrote a story about Sherrone Moore. I highly recommend, if you subscribe to The Athletic, to go read it, because he said, this was Sherrone's homecoming game, right? Going back to Oklahoma. And Sherrone's whole thing was like, I don't want this to be about me. Similar to like Josh Heupel when Tennessee played at Oklahoma last year. It's like, I don't want this to be about me. And the story is basically just like, this is your team. This is your quarterback. This is your offense. These are your decisions. And like, this game did become about you because you were not good enough.
This is the first game he wasn't playing with house money. Like, think about it. Nobody thought Michigan was going to win that game last year. So that pressure was on Ryan Day. Even the Alabama game, like Michigan, they got through it. Like, Alabama's not supposed to be there. Alabama's supposed to be in the playoff.
Are out. Will Johnson's not playing.
That's what I'm saying.
Not playing.
Yeah, and Alabama is not supposed to be. They're supposed to be in the playoff, and they're in the SEC. They're supposed to be better than the Big Ten. They lost. So this is the first time in Sherrone Moore's coaching career that he's played with house money. Not playing with house money. And they lost.
Depends on how you treat the interim game where he coached at Penn State, because there was a lot on the line there. But he wasn't a full-time head coach. However you view that, I get it. But like, you can make an argument for that game.
It was, but I don't. Given what was surrounding that at the time, I don't know. There was a faction of college football fans who probably thought, "Oh, you can't cheat anymore. Maybe you're going to lose this game," and Harbaugh's not there, and that's Harbaugh's team.
That's true.
Even if he's the interim, so that's a little different.
Yeah, when he beat Ohio State, fired if they lose that game.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he wasn't getting fired if they lost to Ohio State in 2023 either. He wasn't getting fired if they lost to Ohio State last year. They've just been like, okay, this is a rebuilding year. We'll see you next year. Well, now you got a quarterback that you paid $10 million for, 5-star, who's been talking a lot of junk. No one's ever seen a freshman like me. You can't come here and take over Ohio State. Oh, I can. This dude went on Rich Eisman's talking about how he was trash talking LeBron about Ohio State and Michigan. The house money's gone. And it didn't look great.
The money's gone.
the money belongs to number 19 now. And it didn't look great.
The money belongs to number 19 and the NCAA.
yeah, the other 20 million with him. But it didn't look great. What does it mean for the rivalry? It's detail in the bigger picture of things, but it's something to monitor in a world where I think over the last 2 weeks, Ohio State and Michigan have both debuted former 5-star number 1 quarterback in their recruiting class guys. And Julian Sayin passed both of his tests. Bryce Underwood passed one of his tests, and he didn't look great in the other one. Julian Sayin looked great in both of those, and it's worth talking about. And it's worth mentioning, because later this week, we're going to talk about threat levels of the quarterbacks left on Ohio State's schedule. And how many of those quarterbacks would you take Julian Sayin over by the time you get to that game? And I do think we now live in a world where I don't think it's going to be shocking, Stefan, if all three of us are like, oh, we're taking Julian Sayin over every single one of them. Why? Because for the last 2 weeks, Julian Sayin has checked off practically every box that was out there for him to check off. Bryce Underwood didn't do that. And so he's got to wait till the Nebraska game and later in the season to do that, because his first chance to check a box, he didn't necessarily do that. 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. That's Leave No Doubt. I know we always go a little bit longer than that. We're not going to always go an hour and 15 on this Leave No Doubt pod. It's just we wanted to break down every single throw and then talk a little bit of Bryce Underwood as well. Rants pod coming on Tuesday, and then we're back in the Woody talking with Ryan Day as Ohio State prepares for its final non-conference game of the season against Ohio and Parker Navarro, who's got a pretty interesting quarterback who I think might test this defense. So I hope we get Matt Patricia this week. I hope we get the coordinators this week. I really hope we get the coordinators this week just to talk with them about some of this stuff here. 614-350-3315 for Stefan Krajisnik. I'm Stephen Means, and that was Buckeye Talk.
Listen. That's the sound of the fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. The sound of captivating electric performance, dynamic drive, and the quiet confidence of ultra-smooth handling. The elevated interior reminds you this is more than an EV. This is electric performance redefined. The fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron.